have two departments, Arabic literature and English literature. And thank you for all. Syukron, syukron jazila ala kulli ihtimamikum wa musa'atatikum wa musyarakatikum fi hadhihi al-fursa athamina wa asallahu ayyusahila umurana fi hadha sabah. Syukron wal afu minkum. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Pak Dekan, our Dean, who has officially opened this international scholar engagement. Before we start by giving the chance for Dr. Ching-Ching Lin to directly play and explain his PowerPoint, her PowerPoint, I'd like to introduce a sort of bio of her. Professor Ching-Ching Lin gained a doctoral degree from Montclair State University in New Jersey, and then here we have a quite long CVs, so we would not read that long CV, but among others, he has co-edited a book project, among others is Reimagining Dialog on an Identity, Language, and Power, which was published in 2023 with Multilingual Matters. She is also the past president of New York TESOL, I think. I forgot the year, but she definitely was the past president of New York TESOL. Without further ado, I think we directly welcome Dr. Ching-Ching Lin to start her presentation. Time is yours, Dr. Ching-Ching Lin. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Professor, for your general introduction, and Dr. Wudi for your gracious introduction as well. I'm deeply honored to be here today and would like to extend my heartfelt appreciation to both of you for your kind invitation to join this meaningful international lecture series, because diversity and dialogue is the heart of my talk today. And I'm also grateful for anyone who are able to join our conversation today. So now please allow me to share my screen. Okay. So my talk today, like Dr. Wudi say, is based on this edited volume titled Reimagining Dialogue on Identity, Language, and Power, which I am privileged to serve as an editor along with my colleague, Dr. Clara Bowler. And this book brings together contributions from scholars around the world, including a powerful chapter by Dr. Wahudi and Dr. Dean Faisal, which stand out as one of the highlights of this volume. And later on, and there will be opportunity for you to hear about their chapter. This book, like Dr. Wahudi say, is published in 23. The collection features 14 chapters that explore the potential of dialogue in language education and research. So today I will be sharing some key insights from this work, with a particular focus on the role of dialogue on knowledge production, both in classroom and in research, and how it shapes our understanding of identity, language, and power. Specifically, first, I will examine the social cultural factor that shape dialogue. As we know, dialogue never take place in social vacuum. It always is shaped by broader cultural, historical, institutional context. Who gets to speak? Who is expected to listen? And what counts as knowledge? These questions are deeply tied to issue of power, language ideology, and social position. Second, I will explore the role of dialogue in knowledge production. Here we want to move beyond seeing dialogue as simply as a tool for idea exchanging. Instead, we consider it as a constructive process, one that allows multiple ways of thinking, one that can disrupt dominant narratives. Third, I will share some of lessons drawn from case study contributed by scholars in the book. This case study, they span in different contexts. They offer a real-world example of how dialogue is used to navigate the linguistic and cultural diversity. And each story can shed light on both the challenges and how those challenges can be navigated in dialogical spaces. So my goal today is to invite all of you, all of us actually, to reimagine what dialogue can mean, not just a research method, but as a call to action to more equitable and humanizing form of education and inquiry. So I want to start with this question. What is dialogue? And this is certainly is a philosophical question. And the answer might vary depends on what school of thought you come from. For some, dialogue can mean informal and spontaneous conversation, like the conversation happening in the playground, in the hallway, over lunch cafeteria. And these talks are often unstructured and doesn't seem to have a goal or direction. Yet they can be valuable in the way they build connection, understanding, and social bonds. On the other hand, some may argue that dialogue should be more structured, more focused, intentional, and oriented towards certain goal. So in this view, the dialogue is seen as a tool for problem solving, critical inquiry, collaboration, and reaching mutual understanding. So there is a wide spectrum, and most of dialogue fall like somewhere in between these two poles. But to get us started, I want to begin with a very simple definition of dialogue. Dialogue, I would define as a communicative process in which people with different perspectives seek understanding. So it's not just about exchange information. It's about being present with each other in a way that acknowledge each other. So in the following, I would like to invite you to interact with me a little bit. I will ask you these two simple questions. On the scale of 1 to 10, how prevalent is dialogue in your personal life? And our second question, I want to ask you, on the scale of 1 to 10, how prevalent is dialogue in your professional life? And I will give you my own answer as an example. So for the first question, being come from Asian, grew up in an Asian family, usually there's not much conversation going on between me and my parents, unless it's come to some kind of impactful decision, like what university you are going to. So I would say in a scale 1 to 10, it's about 3. That's how much conversation we have in our family life. And as to professional setting, I would say the scale is 5. We in the university, we do have a department meeting where the dean, the chair will invite the conversation. But in many ways, the conversation usually is one way. Usually they not much time for conversation. And sometimes the faculty can feel they are actually working in a bubble. Each of us will have our own office, but we kind of work independently. So sometimes you need to create opportunity to collaborate, to have a dialogue with each other. So I would like to see how you respond to these two questions. So feel free to share your responses in the chat. You can just give a simple answer like for question 1, it's 5, or question 2 is 3, such and such. Wow, so why don't you say
Gimana
6
caranya?
for the first one, for the 4 one, and some of them say 10 and 10, and 6 and 8, and 1 and 5, 3 and 7,
Belum.
5 and 1. So this answer kind of surprised me a little bit. Because I kind of expect that there would be a gap between these two areas. Okay, so thank you everyone's responses. So in many answers, there's kind of gap between the question number 1 and question number 2. So we can say that there's kind of a tension between how much we value dialogue and how much it actually appears in our personal and professional life. I mean, as a human, we all love and long for meaningful dialogue. Yet often we find it's limited or constrained in practice to find the time to practice dialogue. And this disconnect highlight the need for us to critically reflect on why dialogue is particularly missing in academia and how we can better understand the complexity involved in dialogue, particularly regarding its role in the production of knowledge. So to explore this question, we will delve deeper into the different type of dialogue we encounter in daily life and reflect on how this insight can inform both daily interaction and academic practice. So let's begin by thinking about the many forms that dialogue can take. So it's easy to assume that dialogue mainly involves 2 and more people talking together. But in reality, dialogue is far more complex. It comes in many forms, shape, and sizes. It can happen across a wide range of contexts. So for example, as we mentioned before, at one end of spectrum, we have informal dialogue, like everyday conversation that unfold naturally in our life. That can be a quiet conversation, a quiet chat between a father and the daughter at the dinner table, or a brief exchange with a stranger when waiting for a bus or riding a subway. In this everyday conversation, silence or body language can be part of those dialogue. And this kind of conversation might seem small or insignificant, and yet they are deeply human. They carry emotion, cultural values, and a subtle way of seeing the world. On the other hand, we find more formal and structured dialogue, like roundtable discussion among educators or policymakers. These conversations are typically organized with a certain purpose. They follow a norm or protocol and may involve a moderator. And usually is designed to reach certain goal, such as decision making or problem solving. So this dialogue is shaped, sometimes scripted, and take place in front of live audience. So as you see, dialogue can exist in many forms and have a level of complexity. But all of the conversation is shaped by who we are, where we are, and the power dynamic at play. So I invite you to see them as part of, not divide them into formal versus informal, valuable versus invaluable. I invite you to see them as a part of continuum, as a social practice, I should say. So that is, we don't see some dialogue as more valuable than other because they are all process, a tool for building understanding and fostering connection and the community. When we divide dialogue into category like formal versus informal, valuable versus unvaluable, based upon whatever we think, whatever criteria we have in mind, we actually risk overlooking the richness of everyday conversation. So a quick hallway conversation between students can be just as valuable. So here I want to give you one example that coming from an author from that have contributed to the book. We are honored to have Dr. Suresh Kanagaraj, who wrote the foreword for us. Dr. Kanagaraj has been a leading voice in applied linguistics and language education. So early in his career, he began studying informal talk among multilingual students. Conversations that are often considered not important in classroom setting because they don't sound like academic enough. So, but what he find was powerful. He find that this informal conversation among students often full of what he called code switching, cultural references, and even humor. It revealed rich, strategic way of using language. So students were making sense of content, they negotiating meaning, they supporting one another, they expressing complex identity. So far from being off task or fooling around, they are actually deeply engaged in learning. So his work actually helped lay the foundation for the concept of translanguaging, a concept, a theory that has gained importance in language field. This perspective sees multilingual students' full linguistic repertoire as resources, not as obstacle to their learning. So in this way, students are seen as a change agent that can fluidly move from context to context, using their language repertoire to express themselves, to engage meaningful knowledge construction. So, so it is important to recognize and respect this notion of concept as a spectrum, as continuum. So here I want to take this opportunity to pause and ask, why does all of this, why is it important to see dialogue as a social practice? And what does it mean for us as an educator, as a researcher, or lifelong learners? Here are the three takeaways I want to share with you. We should intentionally make space for both informal and formal talk in our classroom. Because dialogue does not always have to take the form of a polished academic presentation. It can be a casual classroom discussion, a spontaneous student comment, a reflective pause during the group work. And all this talk can carry meaning and insight. Second point I want to share with you is we need to see students' everyday conversation, not as distraction, but as a window into thinking. When students speak freely, whether they are problem solving with their classmates, whether they are expressing doubt, whether they are switching between languages, they are revealing how they process, they connect, and make sense of what they are learning. So this moment offers valuable glimpses into their cognitive, cultural, and emotional world. Number three, the third point I want to share with you is we must recognize dialogue as a powerful side of knowledge production. It's not only in structured talk, such as a published article where knowledge is made or created. It can also emerge in hallway, in peer collaboration, in cross-cultural exchange. So this everyday interaction, even though they are invisible and can seem insignificant, they are where ideas are shaped and constructed. So when we honor the full continuous dialogue, we begin to disrupt dominant hierarchies that elevate English-only discourse over multilingual expression, that value academic language over lived experiences, that prioritize individual performance over relational and collective knowing. Now, I want to create opportunity for you to interact with me. So, and I want to make this personal this time. I want you to share an example of a meaningful dialogue from your life. And think about where does it happen and why did it matter and what impact did it leave on you?
Oh, patanga to sa.
I want to ask you to write a six-word story, a very short story, very mini, tiny story to capture the essence of your experience. So this six-word story has been a popular icebreaker activity used in many language classrooms. So I'm borrowing this for this activity. So my own example is embrace imperfection as humanity and liberation. So I want to tell you the background story of this mini story that I just wrote. So one of the most meaningful conversations I ever had was with one of my program supervisor during a train ride that we share. So she is Korean American, someone that I admire deeply. She is very organized in her job and very graceful in how he handles things. I'm especially impressed by how he navigated the very complex personal politics in our program. Sorry. Because as a program chair, sometimes he have to manage different personalities. So she gave me two very powerful answers. First, she said she have no choice because being immigrant, being woman in a male-dominant environment, she couldn't rely on anyone else to take a lead by herself. Second, she says she doesn't seek perfection. She believes that no matter what she does, she is no worse than other people and just as good. So to her, imperfection is not failure, but a natural part of ongoing learning. And that struck me a very valuable lesson, because myself, I often feel I was caught in a trap. I try to conform to social norm and the expectation that simply doesn't fit into who I am. And instead, I try to conform to some kind of norm. But I now realize that sometimes trying to be perfect only set me up for failure, because I wasn't true to myself. So this conversation told me something very important. So it is very important to respect our own worth, to respect who we are. So insight like this does not emerge in the classroom. It's not something I learned from lecture. You actually learn from something that unexpected and totally unplanned, totally spontaneous. Yet they are extremely valuable. So I would like to invite you to share your mini story. Let me see if there some responses already. Oh, yes. So I'm going to read some of them. Well, actually, they are questions regarding certificate. Okay, one of them, yes, adopt curiosity as my intellectual vitality. Thank you. That's a beautiful story. Yes. I wonder where you learn, where you have this conversation. Is anyone else want to share your story? Like a 6-word story? Stop thinking too much about how people see me. Yes. Stop think, dialogue, open heart, ending the conflict. I really love this. Really love this. Never settle less than your best. Yes. So thank you very much for this participation. I wish we can have time to learn about the back scene, the behind the scenes stories. But thank you for sharing your brief responses. We have another one, embarking into diverse ocean of knowledge. Beautiful, beautiful words. Forgiveness begins where pride finally ends. Thank you. These are beautiful stories. Okay, so due to the constraint of time, I'm going to move forward. Now I want to introduce some of the key philosophical notions of dialogue that has inspired our book and that we have incorporated into our call for chapter proposal. So first, I want to start with Socrates. Many of you know that Socrates is the father of Western philosophy. So unlike the common image we have today's philosophy as something that created by a solitary thinker, Socrates saw philosophy fundamentally as a dialogue. For him, philosophy wasn't about pursuing fixed truth. It was about engaging in conversation grounded in civic life. where people come together to discuss issues that matter to them, to their life. So in Plato, he document the teaching of Socrates. So Socrates is portrayed as a figure who were going to market and ask people questions such as, what is justice? What is beauty? And what is meaning of life? And he will just find randomly anyone and just start having a dialogue with them. So this is the kind of notion of dialogue that has inspired our book. Dialogue is something that grows out of who we are in particular social and cultural contexts. Our identity and environment shape the way we engage in dialogue. The second philosophic idea comes from Habermas, who is a German philosopher known for his work on public sphere. So Habermas critiqued Western philosophy that before him, who have tendency to be to create a big system that based on monologue or one-sided theory building that is disconnect from real social and political life. For him, true dialogue, true philosophy should be in the form of dialogue that have a meaningful social, that are grounded in social responsibility. So for Habermas, when we talk, we don't just speak for ourselves. We must recognize the social impact of our words and take responsibility for what we say to each other. So even when a teacher speaking to a student in a private office, Habermas considered that as an example of public sphere because their words have social implication beyond the immediate moment or context. So Habermas called on us to be aware of this dimension in our conversation. I apologize that I'm still under the weather, so from moment to moment I might cough. So I ask for your kind understanding. So next, I want to talk a little bit about Mikhail Bakhtin. Bakhtin is a Russian linguist and philosopher whose work has profoundly influenced how we think about language and dialogue. So Bakhtin's famous book, The Dialogical Imagination, explore a concept he called heteroglossia of language. That is the coexistence of multiple voices within language itself. He used this concept to challenge the idea that language is a single unified system. For Bakhtin, our thoughts and speech are inherently dialogical because they always contain the presence of the other. And we are not just talking about the external, the other. We are talking about, we are also talking about the other within our thoughts. There's a constant interplay within our thoughts and speech, where multiple perspectives, voices, and meaning coexist and interact with each other. So Bakhtin famously analyzed the work of novelists like Dostoevsky, who brilliantly capture this multi-voices nature of language by giving every of his character in his novel a unique voice, and that brings the language to life. So again, this dialogue, this understood dialogue is what we try to capture in our book. The next thinker I want to introduce is Foucault. So So Foucault didn't really use that word dialogue. Instead, he introduced the concept discourse, a term that remaining influential. So when Foucault talked about discourse, he's not simply referring to language or conversation. Rather, he's pointed to the system of knowledge, norm, and power relations that shape and govern what can be said and who gets to say and how it is said. So in this sense, dialogue is not just about two people exchange idea in a neutral place. For Foucault, power play a central role in shaping dialogue. So Foucault encouraged us to ask questions like, who gets to speak? Whose voice are heard? And whose perspective are seen as more legitimate, important? And who is silenced or ignored or pushed to the margin? So together, these four philosophical perspectives we have just explored offer us a powerful foundation for thinking about dialogue, not just as a neutral or simple exchange, but as a deeply layered and socially embedded practice. And each perspective reminds us that dialogue is not just about words. It's about who is speaking, who gets heard, and under what condition. So in other words, dialogue is shaped by identity, language, and power. So to help us think more, so our book is dedicated to explore these three dimensions of dialogue. Identity, who are we in dialogue? What story, assumption, and position do we bring into dialogue? And language, what language or way of speaking are made visible and which are silenced? And power, how are hierarchy negotiated, challenged, and reinforced in conversation? So these three dimensions are deeply intertwined. So, so I want to take a turn to talk about these three components: identity, language, and power. And the first one I want to talk about is identity. Identity is at the core of dialogue. When we talk, who we are influences how we speak, what we say, and how other receive us. But identity itself is not simple or static. Identity is very complex. It is layered, it is dynamic, and it is shaped by context. So to engage you with this idea of identity being complex, I want to start with another activity. So I want to read to you an excerpt of dialogue that between two or three people. This dialogue I took from a book called The Wrinkle in the Time. So I want you to guess who those speaker might be and what kind of person do you imagine they are. So let me read to you. And you can think of, I want you to focus on the character Kevin. What kind of person he is, judging by what he say, his words, and how he interact with other people. So Kevin licked his lips. Where are we going? Up. Charles continued his lecture. On Camazos, we are all happy because we are all alike. Difference create a problem. You know that, don't you, dear sister? No. Meg say, oh, yes, you do. You have seen at home how true it is. You know that you are not happy at school because you are different. I'm different, but I'm happy, Kevin said. But you pretend you aren't different. I'm different, and I like being different. Kelvin's voices are unnaturally loud. Maybe I don't like being different, Meg said, but I don't want to be like everybody else either. So I want you to reflect on this dialogue and think about what kind of person Kelvin is. Is he young? Is he old? Is he middle-aged? And what can we know about his personality from what he said? And again, you can respond by sharing your answer in the chat. So do you have any idea about Kelvin's age? That whether he's young or old? Someone who is young, confident, and there are a lot of responses. Confident about his identity. Kelvin is a young person, and Kelvin like being different. He is confident with it. I think Kevin is still on the denial stage, where he has not been that confident to acknowledge his very own identity. Very good answers. In my opinion, Kelvin is a young person, but he looks like an old person because how he speaks like, I'm different, but I'm happy. Yes, I haven't read that book, so I don't really know what kind of character Kelvin is. So your guess is just as good as mine. But I agree with you. Kelvin seemed like a young person, and this seemed like a coming of age story. So thank you for engaging with me. Why we are doing this activity? My purpose is to show that behind every dialogue are real people with distinct identities, and these identities carry meaning. They influence how people speak and how they are perceived. So let's talk a little bit into identity. So in real life, we naturally adjust the way we speak. Depends on who we speak to, right? So the way we talk to a teacher will be the way we talk to a friend or a parent. So beyond adapting our language, we also make a conscious effort about how we present ourselves. And this brings us to the concept of positionality. Positionality meaning how we position ourselves and are positioned by others within a particular context. So for example, in today's context, in this space, I can choose to position myself as an expert, one who has knowledge in the topic that I'm talking about, or I can position myself humbly as co-learner, someone who are here to share her perspective, but invite you to engage with her. So both positionality are valid, but it can influence the kind of dialogue we can have. So identity is not just something internal, it's also relational. It depends on who you're speaking to, and depends on how we see ourselves versus how other people perceive us. So we are constantly negotiating this shifting role and position throughout interaction with other people. Another concept I want to bring up with reference to identity is intersectionality. It's also important to recognize many of us don't just carry one identity. We carry multiple identity all at once. We wear different hats in different spaces. As a teacher, as a parent at home, as a researcher, as a friends to our colleagues. So these identities don't just exist in isolation, they overlap, they interact. And that brings us, that's what intersectionality is. Intersectionality, this concept helps us to understand that our identity are shaped by multiple factors, like race, like gender, like language, class, and religion. And these factors are not operated separately. They intersect with each other. So for example, someone's experience with race or language may not only influence what they feel comfortable saying, but also how they are heard and sometimes unheard. So power dynamics affect not just what you say, but also whose voice carry weight, and whose voice may be dismissed or ignored. So identity is heart of the dialogue we explore in our book. Dialogue is a space where identity can be negotiated and equitable conversation become possible if we structure that space intentionally. The next one I want to talk about is language. I mean, it's obviously dialogue takes place in language. But when we say language, we are not just talking about the words that we use, the vocabulary that we use. We are talking about much broader, much complex system that includes a linguistic norm and a social expectation. So consider what it's like to participate in a dialogue and using language that is not your first language. How would that make you feel? That certainly is the case for many of us in this multilingual and globalized world. It's quite common to find ourselves in conversation where we and the people we are speaking with are coming from different culturally and linguistic diverse background. So how does that shape our experience of dialogue? And how does that impact our ability to express ourselves, or to listen, or to feel heard? And one area that we have explored in our book is the dominant role of English in the global education. English often serves as a common language in academic spaces around the world. But this comes with a serious implication. For those whose first language is not English, participating in an English dominant dialogue can bring up feeling of insecurity, exclusion, pressure to perform in a way that conforms to native-like standard. So we're not just talking about explicit language. We're talking about implicit language as well. We talk about unspoken rule and norm that govern how language can can unfold in real time. For example, in some cultures, it might be considered as a rule or taboo to ask someone about their age, about their marital status or income. But in some other contexts, this question can be very natural or even expected. So the point is not that one way is better than the other, but we have to respect the context, the social cultural context, and these are this kind of dictate the social norm that operated within that dialogical space we were in. So the next and the last component I want to talk about is power. So power never happen in a social vacuum. It always takes place in a particular social and institutional setting, whether it is in a classroom, whether it's in workplace or just a casual group gathering. In all these spaces, power dynamics are at play. Just to think about the way you might speak to your professor versus your classmates, or how you might adjust your tone or language when you talk to your supervisor, compared to when you are chatting with a close friend. We use different language in this context, right? But even among friends, among peers, there can be hidden hierarchy. Some people's voice can carry more weight than others because they have more money, or because they are bigger, or they are stronger. And they tend to be perceived as authority figure. So all those social factors can create some kind of hierarchy in a dialogical spaces. So these are all part of social structure that shape power dynamic in a dialogue. In racialized society like the United States, where I'm in right now, people from marginalized racial background often find that their voice are overlooked, questioned, or devalued. And they have to work twice as hard just to be heard or to be recognized, and still may receive less recognition than they other peers. So when we engage in dialogue, we are not just exchanging ideas, we are also navigating a wave of identity, language, and power. So in this talk, I especially want to talk about the role of dialogue within the research, especially in relation to identity, language, power. And I will only focus on qualitative research, because that's where my expertise lies. So let's take the moment to reflect on the typical stage of research process, right? You get the idea, you form the questions, you form research questions, you get the data, you analyze your data, then you write about it. So this is kind of process. However, if we think deeply, even in the stage of formulate a research question, in this process, it is already deeply relational and dialogical. Because when we formulate a research question, usually we don't do it in isolation. They often emerge from our conversation with peer, with colleagues, with mentor, with community members. They are shaped by our curiosity, our concern, and sometimes urgency. In other words, they are influenced by real-world issues and relationships. And next, let's think about data collection. In most qualitative research, this involve interview, right? Observation or survey. And all of this rely on human interaction. So researchers are often trained to be neutral, to minimize their voices, to avoid introducing bias. But in reality, these human interactions are filled with dialogical moments and shaped by trust, vulnerability, and power dynamic and interpretation. Likewise, in data analysis stage, often this stage is imagined as solitary and objective. But again, there are a lot of dialogue involved with the data, with the literature, with our private experiences, and often with co-researchers, with our colleagues. So this thing, the thing that we generated and the pattern we see in data are informed by multiple voices and perspectives, whether we are aware or not. Finally, we come to writing, right, and publication. And in traditional culture, the act of writing often considered individual. A lot of papers are written by one author, so the individual author has the copyright to their work, and they are responsible for the final product. Whether it's good or bad, they have to take a responsibility individually. But again, very often, even in the writing process, we are shaped by conversation, informal feedback from our colleagues. Yet in our citation or acknowledgement, we often not acknowledge the existence or influence of those informal conversation we have with our colleagues. Instead, we are compelled to cite the expert, like Habermas, like Heidegger, like Foucault. Those authors already established, and overlook the contribution that we have from our peer student or even community partners. So this shows that the research has everything to do with power. In global academia, a disproportionate number of papers are written by author in the global South, especially in English dominant and European American institution. I don't really have a comprehensive. I don't really have data in front of with me. But if we quick scan the most of academic journal, we will find that authors from North America or Europe are vastly overrepresented, while scholars from global South or indigenous scholars remain marginalized or invisible. So in many cases, this not just there's a lot of these are form of linguistic exclusion, and also create the epistemic violence for certain populations. For a scholar from the global South. So now I want to formally talk about the book. The purpose of our book, given our conversation above, is twofold. Sorry. The first goal that we have is to explore how dialogue has always been part of academic and research life, even though it is often unrecognized, under-recognized, marginalized, or suppressed. So the aim of this book, the first aim of this book is to reclaim the role of dialogue in the knowledge production by critically examining the social, institutional, and epistemological conditions that have contributed to the silencing of our dialogical life in academic. Secondly, and equally important, is we see dialogue as a form of intervention, as active practice that can challenge injustice, promote equity, and create more democratic and inclusive form of knowledge production. And dialogue, in this sense, become a tool for redistributing power, for amplifying marginalized voices, and for transforming academic space. So the book, as I say, contains 14 chapters, and each chapter is a case study about how we can navigate the dialogue and how we can use dialogue to disrupt power hierarchies. Each case also represents a unique example of how researchers construct knowledge and interrogate power. So this volume is organized into three parts, and each part represents a different methodology for integrating dialogue into critical inquiry. So the first part are chapters that use this methodology, dialogic testimonial. So testimonial is a form of testimonial narrative rooted in Latin American tradition as a dialogical practice. So in this kind of practice, participants bear witness to social and collective experience of social injustice and identity transformation. So instead of presenting knowledge as objective and detached, this form of dialogical practice see knowledge as a form that honors subjectivity, emotion, and positionality. So through collective storytelling, participants claim agency by situating themselves as both narrator and co-researcher. And this dialogical structure amplifies the authenticity and power of this kind of lived experiences, emphasizes the importance of speaking truth to power. The second part focus on engage in social media. Those chapters explore how dialogue can operate within the spaces of social media, engaging what we call public scholarship, meaning you make a scholarship, make a knowledge more accessible to the public. And usually the platform is like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or podcast. So these social media form the certain kind of spaces that present unique opportunity, but also challenges our dialogical engagement. And they often make a dialogue unpredictable, shaped by live interaction, visibility, and performativity. So chapter in this section, they examine how digital environment can facilitate and constrain authentic dialogue. And in doing so, they highlight how dialogical platform can be used as a tool to open up new avenue for action, for social action, and justice-oriented dialogue and knowledge production. The first section of the book focuses on critical incidents. It framed dialogue through the lens of critical incidents. Critical incident we define as something unexpected and often disruptive event that occur within classroom or institutional setting. These incidents can interrupt routine practices and expose the deeper power dynamics, but also provide opportunity for reflection and for dialogue. So by using critical incidents as a starting point, the author in this section, they demonstrate how can create space to interrogate institutional norm, challenge dominant ideology, and foster collective sense-making. Also, due to the constraint of time, I want to skip this activity. Originally, I want you to have some hands-on experience of how dialogical writing look like. So I thought about putting you in a group of 3 or 4, and where you compose the writing collaboratively. But due to the constraint of time, I'm going to skip this activity. Instead, I want to introduce 2 chapters from the book. The first book is co-authored by myself and 3 other colleagues of mine, and the second is by Professor Udi and Dr. Pa Faisal. So my chapter is the chapter 7. So in this chapter, there are 4 of us. We are all from different racial, linguistic background. We coming together to explore how our language identity have shaped our personal and professional journey in TESOL. TESOL, for those people who are not familiar with technology, means teaching English to speakers of other languages. So it's a field of language education. So so we come into a space where we kind of explore how we have become what we call BIPOC TESOL professional. So BIPOC is a term we use in the United States to designate some marginalized population or community members. So BIPOC meaning Black, Indigenous, people of color. So all four of us are BIPOC. So we begin by setting the topic and agenda collaboratively through WhatsApp and Zoom. And and prior to meeting, we exchange the background information, and we brainstorm questions together. And each of our meetings were recorded. Why we initially thinking about making this into a podcast. Meaning we will publish on social media, but we eventually choose not to because we are navigating the logistic part of creating a podcast, and we couldn't do it before the submission deadline, and therefore we did not we didn't do it. However, by recording our meeting, it actually heightened our awareness of language identity and power. So our project actually is inspired an article that we read together. It is an article that written by Parsons and Lavery in 2012. It's called Broker Dialog. In their dialogue, they documented the project that they undertook, where they engaged patient to create a podcast. In that process, the patient they will interview patient, and they and the patient will they will write a transcript together, and they will decide what are they going to say in front of camera. They also have say in how they're going to portray themselves, what kind of image they're going to position themselves, how they are going to edit their image. In other words, they participate in the process of podcasting. And so that's why inspire us. So we want to create something like this. So we record each meeting, and that meeting kind of become our research data. So even though our project didn't really reach to the level of publishing it as a podcast, we are still reflecting on the process that we're going through. And that was really a humbling learning experience. We begin to understand that how dialogue can be a performance. When we posing ourselves in front of camera, we actually speak differently. And so there's a tension between intention and performance, and between our internal voice and what is spoken aloud. So that actually open up a rich area of exploration and the reflection. So I want to share about our research process. These are the 3 steps that we use in our data collection process for this project. Step 1 is we begin by inviting each of us to share a personal history of our language education. As a TESOL professional, this includes how we learn the language and how we become a language teacher in multiple settings. And this story offers insight into how language has shaped our respective journey, identity, and sense of belonging. And the second step is critical incident. We ask each of us to come to reflect on some critical incident that has stood out in our language journey, and so reflect on these critical incidents. Show us that language is not just it's never neutral. It's a sign where identity are constantly negotiated and power is resisted and negotiated. Step 3 is when we come together to analyze our dialogue and reflection together. This step involves engaging in dialogue, in asking questions, and drawing conclusion and co-construct meaning together. So I want to just share one conversation that we have. Since we only have, because I want to finish by 1:30. So a powerful moment emerged from our conversation is when one of our co-author, Derek Bella, who shared an experience he had at a campus barbershop. At that time, he was a student at Columbia University. So he went into a campus barbershop. He asked for a haircut. And being an African American, so Derek had that kind of braided hair, you know. So the barber looked at his hair and say, "We don't do this kind of hair, you know. We just don't, you know." So he walked out with a disappointment. So he bring up this experience to us, and we discuss whether this is an example of racism. Obviously, Derek thinks it's an example of racism, because they refuse to serve him, you know, just because of his color, because of the kind of hair he has. But Yasmin, she's African American, and she also has her own story of her hair. She said, if you are African American and you have a different kind of hair, you know, you will go to a specialized barbershop to do your hair. You know, you won't just go to any barbershop. So this is she didn't think Derek's experience is a form of racism. So there's some dialogue back and forth where we are arguing whether this is a form of racism, whether implicit or explicit, whether it's racism regardless. So Derek, he expressed his frustration that he did not have language to make his argument come across, to name his experience as unjust. Because for him, it is a form of racism, and yet he feels he does not have that kind of vocabulary or language to speak about his experience. So instead, Derek could actually share a cartoon with us that he drew to illustrate how he felt trapped. So that's the cartoon that I share with him. So share with you. That shows a lion in the water, and the fish in the water kind of making fun of lion. That's how he feel. Derek feel he was out of his element. He was unable to speak freely about his own pain. So even though it might seem like a very insignificant life story, it's just a haircut, right? It's like it can be so unimportant. And yes, but yes, that's also example of the kind of racism he had experienced. So for him, this experience is visual, emotional, and to the core of his identity. So talking about this experience together, not only we share our pain together, but also create some kind of sense of solidarity among us. So we all embrace our identity as a BIPOC, and we realize we are actually all in together. We negotiating similar tension and conflict in our respective contexts, even though in a different way. So what we learn from our dialogue does not always lead to some conclusion or closure. Instead, our experience with dialogue as a form of research is it's open new questions and create new tension and push us beyond easy answer. And we think that's true spirit of research. Research shouldn't be something that's self-contained or finalized. In traditional research, we often are told to frame question, collect data, analyze, and then reach conclusion. And we treat the research as self-contained. But our dialogue show that a different model of research as relational, as emotional, and generative, as human. So even what we call data, the data we generate is something that can continue to evolving and shifting and expanding and deepening through our dialogue. So with this, I want to conclude my part of presentation, and thank you for your patience in listening. Next, I want to introduce Dr. Ribat Wahidi and Dean Faisal's chapter. I see their chapter as one of the most compelling contributions in our active volume. It's textual and it's complex, and their dialogue explore the tension and possibility that emerge when navigating between the Western text and Islamic text, between the global North and the global South. So it's very rich, and I wouldn't do it justice if I present it for them. So here I want to turn the floor to Dr. Wahidi and Dr. Faisal to present your chapter. And I will stop sharing. Yes.
Thank you for your wonderful and insightful presentation, Dr. Ching-Ching Lin. I think most of the participants will want to have a dialogue with you after this presentation. But let me first share our chapter about identity, language, and power. Actually, first of all, when I saw your colorful chapters on the internet, I was very interested at that time. And then because it is labeled under the name of dialogue, I was thinking, how can I have among of my friends who, for example, is the right partner for co-writing this project. And then I start thinking that our dean is also post-structuralist, yeah. He likes a post-structural way of thinking and knows well about the Western scholars as well as the Islamic scholars. And then I invited my dean to join with me to write this a chapter, and we engage into that dialogue, the perfect match with your project. And then as the lead, I was thinking to use, when discussing about language, identity, and power, when discussing about language, I was thinking about how language is understood in post-structural context, because my dissertation back in the past was inspired much by post-structuralism and also the work of interdisciplinarity. And I was thinking that I should use Michel Foucault for that time to discuss element of power, their power relations. And also I was thinking about identity in terms of the idea put forward by Professor Bonnie Norton from University of British Columbia. And the last one, I was thinking about Rowin Connell, is professor at the University of Sydney, who introduced the book on Southern theory, where she proposed that there is, even though this is not completely correct, she acknowledged there are divisions like global North and global South, where global North is gaining more dominant on knowledge production and global North is less. And her book, it aims to democratize knowledge production. She aims to promote more democratic field in terms of knowledge productions. And after that, I was asking my dean, and I should acknowledge that our dean is very egalitarian, so that I can directly, when talking to someone who is an in high a top position, sometimes it's not easy. But it's not the case with my dean, because I can directly came to his office, and then I asked him to propose the Islamic scholars who have a critical ideas, and he proposed Hassan Hanafi, from Egypt, and also Al-Jabiri also. Hassan Hanafi is very well known in his ideas of Occidentalism, also challenging the West, because the West only made Islam as the object, not the subject. This is, again, I narrate this from Pak Faisal's explanations to me, because I'm still not very much with this Islamic scholars idea, so I just retell the story from Pak Faisal. And Hassan Hanafi argued that the West only made Islam as object, not as subject. Therefore, he challenged this idea and made Islam as the subject itself, to have more agency, to have more agency, and to have more critical dialogue. Well, he introduced Al-Jabiri and also Hassan Hanafi. Me, myself, I introduced the concept of Foucault power relations, and also Rewin Connell, Southern theory. And then what is then our data? Our data are from our classes, because our research is, our research use collaborative autoethnography, means that we situate this kind of power relations, global North and global South power relations, in the context of our classes, where also critical incidents happens. For example, in his classes, Pak Faisal asked the student, to write Islamic scholars' work in his edited volumes, to promote the Indonesian Islamic scholars' ideas, not just not just depending on the Islamic scholars from the Middle East. So, if the global North and the global South in English context for my department is, global North can be a European, American, and the global South can be Indonesians or African, and also Latin American. But having said that, I'm really aware that this is not, I'm really aware that this is not completely correct, because there is global South in the global North, and vice versa. There is a global North in the global South, because of this tricky division. What is really also interesting, it's in Pak Faisal class when he was teaching approaches to Islamic study. He introduced more critical approaches to Islamic study, and there was also a student who such kind of protested his explanation of understanding of Islam. This is kind of a critical incident in his class, but he managed to solve this by offering a broader perspective of Islam, including Hassan Hanafi and also Al-Jabiri. In my class, the critical incident happens when I, for example, was disciplining my students to join the class during the COVID-19, using, a more virtual classroom, using WhatsApp class. But the student, when I attempted to discipline one of the students there, the chair of the leader of the class, the captain of the class, questioned my way of disciplining student by saying that more or less that students had many trouble or obstacle during the COVID-19 because we were, we cannot, just join Zoom, or we cannot just join WhatsApp easily because of the blockage in the area of where they live in. This is kind of the things that in our classroom, our course, when we run our course, it's not only going into normative way. Attention happens, critical incident happens. The things that what we need to do is just to accommodate that and to handle that in more open-minded way. That's what has been done by Pak Faisal and me myself in the classroom. And by having this dialogue, I asked Pak Faisal to comment on my way of teaching, because in Islamic university context, when I was teaching interculturality, for example, not only I, delivered the material according to the sources adopted from the West, but I also introduced the sources from post-colonial scholars like Suresh Kanagaraja itself. And then also by introducing the concepts of Islam that understand how Islam sees interculturality. And then Pak Faisal commented that it's a form of local cosmopolitanism, where I combine the global and the local into a critical dialogue in the classroom to create or to condition students to have more agency, to have a more agentic subject rather than just receiving the materials from the West. Now, apart from that, what is really important is then what we did in the classroom is really shaped by our identities, of course, because identity is always multiple. Identities as post-structuralist thinkers. Pak Faisal was in the past was activists, yeah. And then by our understanding of Islam, by our social activism, because our social activism, for example, as done by Pak Faisal, is how students can capture the works of local Islamic scholars and Islamic manuscript. The work of Islamic scholars itself, for Pak Faisal, he argued that it contained social changes in the past that the student also need to capture and learn. That's not necessarily that we need to always, yes, we respect, of course, the Islamic scholars from the Middle East, but the local ulama, local Islamic scholars of Indonesia is also are also someone to be respected in terms of knowledge. That's what happened in Pak Faisal. But in my course context, I want my students, while graduating from this Islamic university, they, have a good knowledge of Western context, but they are still firm with their own identity as an Indonesian, having local wisdom, having local norms, but as a Muslim who is really based with our Islamic identity. This is the thing that is we want to promote for our students. So we want to have more healthy knowledge production, knowledge dialogue with the West. Thank you. I think that's my sharing of our chapter. If Pak Faisal wants to add more. Pak Faisal, do you want to add more explanation or sharing on our chapter?
No, Pak. No.
Thank you, Pak Faisal. I saw that you are very engaged in this and following us, our dialogue. Now, I think it's the time. I think most of the participants are eager to have dialogue with our invited scholar. So for the first term, I will invite one one question from the lecturer and then one question from the student first. And then after that finished, I will open another chance for question and answer. Now, first of all, the question from our colleague, probably the lecturer. Is there any of our colleague who is interested to have a dialogue with Dr. Ching-Ching Lin? I know this is the interest of many lecturers here. There are also Bu Mainarni Susilawati, there are also Bu Istiada, there is also Pak Agwin Degaf, also Bu Mundi as well, Pak Samsudin, Pak Zainur Rafiq. Oh, if at the moment there is no question from the lecturer, I will ask the student to also give the same chance. Oh, Bu Habibah, okay. Bu Habibah is our young lecturer, Fikih Budiman. I will give to Bu Habibah first, and then after that, I will give a student a chance to ask question. Bu Habibah, time is yours.
Okay, thank you for the chance, Mr. Ribut and Dr. Ching-Ching Lin. I'd like to ask several things. When it comes to dialogue, it's very hard to, to get the equal power as in the classroom discourse. We're gonna see that the teacher is always be the powerful and the student is always be the powerless. Not to mention that the teacher has something to offer. That's why it makes them powerful than the students. So I'm questioning on how the students, moreover in translingual students, such as, in our faculty that English is not our first or second, English is our foreign language. So translingual practices will likely to happen, and how to make that equity as you propose in your book, that dialogue can promote equity. We want to promote equity. We want to eliminate the marginality. How could we do that? Well, in nature, dialogue, especially in classroom discourse, is actually, there's a power gap in nature because the teacher always has something to offer. That's what makes them powerful. Can you please tell me about this? So, thank you.
Thank you for the question, Bu Habibah. Dr. Ching-Ching Lin, can you directly respond to Bu Habibah's questions?
Thank you, Abiba, for your thoughtful question. And the way you explain it is really powerful, and actually speak to my own experience. And that's the reason why I come up with this project. It's not that I think that just by creating this book, and then it will solve the classroom problem. Again, as I say, that the classroom is like any other institutional space, is embedded within the social power dynamics. There's a power dynamic operative within all those social spaces, including the classroom. And often, like you say, that the language has been used as a mechanism of social control, as a gatekeeping tool to regulate the students' participation. And I certainly can relate it to that experiences when I came to the United States to study. I feel I was marginalized and silenced in the classroom, and most of teachers did not have that kind of awareness to bring in to see students' perspective can be a valuable resources for learning. So I certainly understand that where your question come from. So I feel to create dialogue, we need to take a small step, and starting from teachers. Teacher can have it's very powerful in the classroom space. they can choose to be a gatekeeper, or they can choose to share power, or they can open up space for students, and or they can even further, they can position themselves as a co-learner and bring their students' perspective into the classroom, especially in the United States. The classroom can be just a microcosm for the society that where the power imbalance power structure the space. The teacher can have power to change how this dynamic power dynamic work in the classroom. So I have always share my own experiences. That teacher can position differently in the classroom space, and that need to that involving them to shift their thinking, not only pedagogically but also epistemologically and ontologically, and asking themselves what is knowledge and how is knowledge produced. In traditional classroom setting, right, the teacher is usually positioned as a knowledge authority, all the knowledge coming from them. But we have to think about their knowledge usually informed by certain ideology. So if we only admit, if we only acknowledge a teacher as the only authority in the classroom, it's going to perpetuate this kind of knowledge hierarchy. So in order to disrupt this kind of knowledge hierarchy, we need to challenge the teacher as the only authority in the classroom. And that really take teachers humility to understand the knowledge that they possess is not the only knowledge. It's not the only form of knowledge. Instead, all the knowledge structure is built on the suppression and marginalization of other perspective. These other knowledge systems are equally valuable, such indigenous knowledge, such as knowledge that from global south, and the student can be a strategic place to bring in other knowledge perspective and traditions. So we have to rely on the teacher, unfortunately, to open the space in a classroom. So I'm not sure if I understand, if I answer your question effectively.
Thank you for
it's
your.
quite understandable.
Thank you for your very insightful answer, Dr. Ching-Ching Lin. I think now is the time for our student, one of our students to ask question. Yes, please mute your noise. Yeah. Fikih Budiman, I give the time for you to ask a question. Fikih Budiman is one of our student, Dr. Ching-Ching Lin. He is one of my student in cultural studies class. Time is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Rabu Wahyudi, for the kind introduction. And I would like to first express my heartfelt thank you to Dr. Rabu Wahyudi and Dr. Ching-Ching Lin and Dr. Muhammad Faisal for the opportunity. Actually, to be honest with you, Dr. Ching-Ching Lin, last night I came across your LinkedIn profile and I read your profile, and you define yourself as a social activist and also lifelong learner, right? And I was incredibly blown away by that idea. And speaking of racism that you passionately talked about in this presentation. You talked about how racism changed the shape of our community. And I was wondering about the Stop Asian Hate movement in the United States around 2021 during COVID-19 pandemic. It was a racial conflict between the white people, the people who define themselves as the white people, and also the people of color or the Asian communities, to be specific. Actually, there are two questions that I would like to question you. The first one is, how do we redefine our own or our genuine identity as the Asian community in the US, or as an immigrants, as the Asian immigrants in the US? And the second one is, how do you envision a thought-provoking dialogue to make the world more inclusive for all communities, regardless of their race, regardless of their gender, for it's for the equality for all. So I think that would be it for my question. And once again, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you for your questions. Sorry, I didn't get your name.
Budiman.
Buddhimam, yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for your brilliant questions. It's really touched my heart. Those questions really resonate my experience. But instead of directly answer your question, I actually want to tell another story. I prefer to my class is never lecture based. I like to tell a story. I feel by telling my own story, I actually open a space by inviting other people, by inviting students to share a perspective, and therefore create a space of shared humanity. And usually that's the way I teach my class. So a lot of story telling, sharing, and I feel that's the way to construct knowledge together. So talking about Asian Americans' experience, so I often share a story with my students who are mostly white and who aspire to become teachers. And mostly they are living in a social bubble. They don't have contact with students from minoritized background. So I usually tell a story that when I was high school social study teachers, I work with a lot of Asian students. And one time, a group of Asians, the Chinese boy, they came to me. They said they want to go to bathroom. And I said, okay, go. And our school have one pass at the time. So if you want to go to bathroom, yes, but there's only one pass. So you go individually. But they have a different request. They want to go together as a group. And I say, I said to them, explain to me why you want to go as group. And they say, because they are afraid of being beaten up because the bathroom, we don't realize the bathroom can be a very volatile environment because there's no camera watching. So anything can happen in the bathroom, right? So they have been harassed in the past, and they are afraid to go into the bathroom alone. And as a new teacher at that time, I did not handle very well. I told this, I related their request to the dean. However, the dean didn't do anything because our school did not have experience dealing with this kind of student conflict. However, I feel the narrative unfolding in such a way is like Asian student versus African student versus Latino student. But meanwhile, as a teacher, I feel for all of my students because I work at the Title I school, And my students are all from marginalized background. I know within that system, they are all racialized and they are pitted against each other. In reality, they are all marginalized and in their own way, and yet they often like position against each other like they are enemy with each other. So identity can be a very complex thing. You cannot really look at the identity, a certain identity alone by itself in isolation, knowing that they are all social construct. They are created by certain social reality. All the identity, they are inherently intersectional. You cannot really isolate them from each other. So I have been dedicated myself to speak to the complexity of this reality. I mean, our tendency tend to simplify, try to resolve problem by simplify things. My approach is different. I want us to unveil, especially through dialogue, we unveil the complexity of the situation we are in, and we come to understand that reality is messy, yet we can come together and construct some inclusive future, no matter how limited it is at the present time. At least it's a small step we can take that toward a more equitable, inclusive future. And the many chapters through this book, each book I edited is action project for me, because it's through this book I learn from others. Like I learned so much from Dr. Yudi and Dr. Faisal. And their chapter is multilingual. And we try very hard to preserve that multilingual structure, because a lot of experience somehow get lost in English. And so we want to preserve their experience, that experience that's unique, that is intersect with Islamic and your local cultures. Again, I always emphasize this kind of humility, that as a teacher, we don't really know everything. Even at my age, I feel there's so much to learn from my students. And learning actually is the best way of teaching. Look at the science that bring us to this stage. The kind of world we are living in, with the social climate crisis, I don't feel the so-called the Western scientific knowledge that they respect authority, respect the reason in its singularity, can bring us to a better future. So we need to be humble and reflect what brings us to this juncture of history. Whether this juncture is built on suppression of the voices and a valuable perspective that actually can bring us into a better future. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ching-Ching Lin. I think the time is almost close to an end. Do you mind if I ask a question from Arabic literature or Arabic student or Arabic literature lecturer to be more inclusive? And after that, we will stop this guest lecture. Are there a question from lecturers from Arabic department or a student from Arabic departments? please raise your hand, and we would be happy for you to have a question for Dr. Ching-Ching Lin. Yang bahasa Arab, monggo Bapak Ibu bahasa Arab, dosen bahasa Arab, dan juga mungkin mahasiswa yang ingin bertanya supaya ini lebih inklusif ya. Tidak hanya yang dari bahasa Inggris. Mungkin ada yang bertanya? Dipersilakan. Mungkin bertanya bahasa Indonesia boleh, saya terjemahkan ke bahasa Inggris boleh. Monggo, kalau mau bertanya bahasa Indonesia, saya terjemahkan nanti di dalam bahasa Inggris. Apakah sudah cukup? Now, it seems that there is no question, Dr. Ching-Ching Lin from Arabic Literature Department. Corina are you asking questions?
Yes, very good.
Oh, Pak Samsudin, yeah. Pak Samsudin, are you asking question?
Yes,
Yes.
I would like to ask questions.
Please welcome Pak Samsudin. Pak Samsudin is our lecturer, Dr. Ching-Ching Lin.
Right. Thank you very much for the opportunity given, Pak Ribut. And also thank you very much
video, Pak
for
Samsudin.
a
Pak
great
Samsudin,
presentation by Dr. Yes.
Please turn on your video.
Oh, then my video, okay. Yes, can you see me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Ribut, for the opportunity given to me, and also
Yes.
thank you very much for Dr. Ching-Ching and also Dr. Faisal for the good presentations. Well, when we are talking about this question is directed to Dr. Ching-Ching, but probably later if Dr. Faisal could also add the explanation related to the question, that will be welcome. All right, I thank you very much for the answer later. This is about the condition in the world that has already happened today, especially related with that people say that no is not find, is not find, not find. People say that the word no is not find. Why it has happened? We could see that there have been several wars, among several countries in this world, and of course, we are very sad looking at this condition. As say Indonesian, I myself, I do hope that the war that happened among the countries in this world would end soon. And then related to this world condition, when we are talking about the topic of language, power, and identity, of course, in this case, language, power, and identity, especially language, has a very big role to make the condition of this world become peaceful. I'm sorry, Dr. Ching-Ching. So, as the academic people related to the language that we used, what we can do to make this world become peaceful when we see the close relationship between language, power, and identity. What we can do using this language to make this world, I'm sorry, once again, become peaceful. I think that's all that I would like to ask. I thank you very much for the response given. Thank you very much, Pak Ribut. I'm so sorry if there is...
No problem, Pak Samsudin. Good question.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Dr. Ching-Ching Lin, please provide your ideas or respond to Pak Samsudin questions. Time is yours. Thank you.
Thank you for this question. Indeed, this is very profound question. And in a way, I think it's a question that we are all struggle with. In face of this kind of challenge that we are all facing globally, the dialogue can be seem so insignificant, can be such a trivial. Yet, if we look into how all those hate or hateful discourse has been perpetrated and reinforced, we can see that the language often have been a weapon and used as a weapon to create enemy, to hurt each other. So I feel in our own immediate context, we need to exercise the peaceful talk. The world we are facing can be hateful, can be violent, yet we have control of ourselves. I know this is difficult in my own environment. We have a lot of family members. They don't talk to each other because they are on a different part of political spectrum. They voted for different politicians, and after election, they don't talk to each other within our family. And we used to sit down the dining table together, and now we don't even make a phone call to each other anymore. So this kind of thing happen, and it can be so hurtful. However, I'm not saying that there can be a solution, easy solution for it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this situation. But we can be mindful about how language can be weaponized, can be used a weapon, a tool to perpetuate the hate and the violence. That's something that we can all dialogue about it. Dialogue is not about solving problem. It's not, at least it's not a tool made. It's not a tool made for that purpose. It's about raising awareness, bring more visibility to our thoughts, to the problem we have, to analyze the problem. But that's the beginning. That's the beginning of building more building solution, building action to the solution. So and I'm humble that you asked me this question because I feel I'm not in no position to answer these questions. So thank you for thinking of me, and thank you for engaging with me in this space. And I learned so much from all of you, even though just 3 questions, and I can tell the vitality of this community. And I'm really honored that you invited me into this space.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Ching-Ching Lin. Because the time is over, before we close this program, Pak Faisal, do you want to add something in Bahasa Indonesia? Maybe?
Thank you very much for Dr. Ching-Ching Lin.
Thank you, Dr. Faisal.
As in
Faisal.
our program. Dan insya Allah di dalam kesempatan yang lain kita bisa berdiskusi dan bertemu kembali. Dan di al-fursa at-taliya nahnu insya Allah sanaltaqi. Insya Allah.
Yes, Dr. Ching-Ching Lin, he said that in the future, God willing, that we will meet again, have more discussions. And he thank you for your willingness to be our invited speaker. And because the time is over, I would like to thank to all the participants either from UIN Malang and other universities. I know some other from other universities and our lecturers, our students, our colleague, and time has to come to an end. Thank you again, Dr. Ching-Ching Lin. Thank you very much. I close this session by saying Alhamdulillah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wabarakatuh.